All right, folks, buckle up for a wild ride through Russia's military history over the last 124 years. It's been quite the roller coaster, so let's dive in. The not-so-great start, from 1900 to 1917. Picture this. It's 1900, and Russia is feeling pretty good about itself. The Tsar is in charge, vodka is flowing, and everyone's rocking those furry hats. What could possibly go wrong? Well, as it turns out, quite a lot. In 1904, Russia decided to pick a fight with Japan. Now you might think, Russia versus Japan. That's like a bear fighting a samurai. And you'd be right, except the bear got its furry butt handed to it. The Russo-Japanese War was a disaster for Russia, culminating in the destruction of their Baltic Fleet at the Battle of Tsushima. Oops. But wait, there's more. Just when you thought it couldn't get worse, along comes World War I in 1914. Russia, still nursing its wounds from the Japanese debacle, decides to join the party. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go well. The Russian army, despite its size, proves about as effective as a chocolate teapot. By 1917, the country is in chaos. The Tsar is out, and the Bolsheviks are in. Talk about a regime change. The Red Army rises from 1917 to 1945. Enter the Soviet era. Stage left. The newly formed Red Army starts off by fighting a civil war against the White Army. It's like a really violent game of chess, except everyone's wearing red or white. And instead of checkmate, they yell, "For the revolution," or "For the Tsar." After winning the Civil War, the Red Army decides it needs a makeover. Out with the old Tsarist officers. Literally, many were retired permanently, and in with the new communist ones. It's like a military version of Extreme Makeover, except with more gulags and less crying. Fast forward to 1939, and Stalin's feeling pretty clever after signing a non-aggression pact with Hitler. Look at me, he probably thought, outsmarting that mustachioed maniac. Cut to 1941, and Hitler's like, "Psych!" launching Operation Barbarossa. The largest invasion in history catches the Soviets with their furry hats down. At first, it's a disaster. The Germans advance faster than you can say blitzkrieg. But then, like a bear waking up from hibernation, the Soviet war machine roars to life. They move their factories east, crank out tanks, faster than IKEA makes furniture, and start pushing the Germans back. By 1945, Soviet troops are taking selfies in front of the Reichstag. Okay, not really, but you get the idea. Here come Cold War shenanigans from 1945 to 1991. After World War II, the Soviet Union emerges as a superpower. It's like they went from being the nerdy kid in class to suddenly bench-pressing tanks and flexing nuclear missiles. The Cold War begins, and it's basically a global game of anything you can do, I can do better with the United States. The Soviet military-industrial complex goes into overdrive. They're churning out weapons like there's no tomorrow, which, given the nuclear standoff, was a distinct possibility. Want a tank? Here's 50,000. Need a fighter jet? We've got more than we know what to do with. Nuclear missiles? We've got them in fun sizes, regular and extra large. But it's not all parades and missiles. The Soviets decide to take their show on the road. In 1956, they roll into Hungary to help with a little uprising. Then in 1968, they pop over to Czechoslovakia for some friendly assistance. It's like they're the world's worst neighbors, always showing up uninvited and refusing to leave. The pinnacle of Soviet military adventure tourism comes in 1979 when they invade Afghanistan. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go well. It turns into a 9-year quagmire that makes Vietnam look like a day at the beach. By 1989, they're pulling out faster than a cat from a bathtub. The Great Unraveling from 1991 to 2000. In 1991, the Soviet Union does its best Jenga impression and collapses. Suddenly, the mighty Red Army finds itself spread across 15 different countries. It's like waking up after a wild party and realizing you've lost your pants, your wallet, and about 14 of your friends. The 1990s are not kind to the Russian military. Funding dries up faster than a puddle in the Sahara. Ships rust in harbors, planes sit idle in hangars, and soldiers moonlight as taxi drivers to make ends meet. It's less Red Army and more Sad Army at this point. The First Chechen War, 1994-1996, showcases just how far the mighty have fallen. The Russian military, once the terror of Europe, struggles against a small breakaway republic. It's like watching a heavyweight boxer lose to a feisty chihuahua. Putin's Russia starts in 2000. Enter Vladimir Putin, stage right. He promises to restore Russia's military might, which at this point is about as mighty as a wet noodle. The 2008 war with Georgia shows some improvement. It's less wet noodle and more al dente pasta. Putin pours money into the military like it's going out of style. New tanks, shiny planes, fancy missiles. It's like Russia's military got a gift card to the superpower R Us store and went on a shopping spree. In 2014, Russia annexes Crimea from Ukraine. It's a smooth operation that catches everyone off guard. The world is shocked. Ukraine is outraged, and Putin is probably somewhere doing a victory dance in his judo outfit. But the real test comes in 2022 when Russia launches a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Putin probably expected it to be a cakewalk. Instead, it turns into the military equivalent of stepping on a Lego brick in the dark. Painful, surprising, and making everyone wonder who left it there. The invasion exposes some serious issues in the Russian military. Logistics problems? Check. Poor morale? You bet. Corruption? More than you can shake a stick at. It's like they took all the lessons from their military history and said, nah, we're good. As we roll into 2024, the war in Ukraine grinds on. The Russian military, once feared across Europe, finds itself bogged down in a conflict it thought would be over in days. It's a bit like showing up to a knife fight with a tank, only to realize you forgot to put gas in it. So there you have it, folks. 124 years of Russian military history, from the disasters of the early 20th century to the current quagmire in Ukraine. It's been a journey full of triumphs, tragedies, and more than a few facepalm moments. The Russian military has been through more ups and downs than a yo-yo in an elevator. They've gone from the embarrassment of the Russo-Japanese War to the triumph of World War II, from the superpower status of the Cold War to the struggles of the post-Soviet era, and from the resurgence under Putin to the current challenges in Ukraine. If there's one lesson to be learned from all this, it's that in Russian military history, the only constant is change. Well, that and a fondness for those furry hats. Because no matter how many tanks you have or missiles you can launch, you've got to keep your head warm, right? And who knows what the future holds? Maybe by 2124, we'll be writing about Russian space marines or underwater cavalry. One thing's for sure, it won't be boring. So stay tuned, keep your vodka chilled, and your furry hat handy. The saga of Russian military history is far from over.